All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a simple three-word phrase that, let's be honest, most of us are trained to avoid at all costs in our professional lives. But what if I told you that leaning into that phrase was actually the secret to being more competent, more trustworthy, and frankly, a better leader? Let's explore that.
No lo sé. I don't know. It's such a tiny phrase, isn't it? But it carries a ton of weight. We're taught that it's a sign of weakness, something you should hide. But the whole idea behind this explainer is that this is where all the power is hiding.
And this whole concept is captured perfectly in a simple conversation someone overheard at a coffee shop. You know, one of those moments that just perfectly lays out a professional dilemma that so many of us face every single day. So picture this. One person asks another, "How do you always respond so fast in meetings?" And that's a question coming from a place of admiration, right? We've all been there. We see that one colleague who just seems to have an instant, brilliant answer for everything, and we can't help but wonder, how do they do that? And here is where the story takes a turn. The answer isn't what you'd expect. It's a confession. They say, "The truth? I often have no idea." The secret isn't having this massive internal library of facts. It's knowing how to ask good questions. I mean, that completely flips our whole idea of what competence is supposed to look like. And this is the core insight. Admitting you have a gap in your knowledge isn't a failure. It's actually an act that builds trust. Just think about it for a second. Who do you really trust more? The person who's bluffing, trying to look like they have all the answers, or the one who's honest enough to say they don't know, but is ready to find out? And boom, there's the barrier. This is the reality check. The other person's reaction is exactly what so many of us are thinking. The culture in our own teams, in our own companies, often punishes this kind of honesty. We're scared that if we admit we're not sure, we'll look incompetent or unprepared. This exact fear is what leads us right into something called the infallibility trap. It's this unspoken pressure in so many workplaces that you have to seem perfect, that you have to know everything, and that you can never, ever show a moment of doubt. And this creates a huge paradox. On one hand, we reward things like having a fast answer. We applaud people who seem certain. We praise the appearance of knowing. But then, look at what we sacrifice to get that. We lose out on good questions, on people admitting they're uncertain, and on the chance to truly understand the problem. Companies say they want innovation, but they reward behaviors that stamp out curiosity. And the consequences are pretty severe. When people are too afraid to say, "I don't know," you get big decisions made on a shaky foundation. Curiosity gets blocked. Vulnerability gets punished. And people learn how to pretend instead of how to understand. In short, the entire organization just stops learning. So, if knowing everything is a trap, what's the alternative? The solution is to focus on a completely different skill, one that's way more powerful. It's all about making a fundamental shift in what we value, moving away from knowing and towards learning. This really redefines what it means to be a valuable professional in today's world. It's not the person who has all the facts memorized. It's the person who can learn quickly, who has the good judgment to know what they don't know, and who has the skills to find the right answers. That's the real MVP. And the source material gives us some incredibly practical tools for this. Instead of bluffing, try one of these phrases. Number 1, "I don't know, but I'll find out." That shows responsibility. Number 2, "Explain that to me. I'm not clear on it." This shows you value clarity over ego. And number 3, "What if we look at this from another angle?" This one opens the door for real innovation. And this is why it all matters so much. Just let this sink in. The real danger in business isn't uncertainty, it's false certainty. It's that confidently delivered, but completely wrong answer that sends projects, teams, and even whole companies off a cliff. So the real mission, then, is to make not knowing a normal part of work. To change it from something we fear into something that sparks learning and builds trust. But how in the world do you actually build a culture where that's possible? Well, we have to be real about it. This is hard to do. We're pushing back against some very deep-seated fears. The fear of appearing weak, the fear of losing status,
the fear of not meeting the expectations that we think everyone has for us. It really comes down to a choice between two kinds of workplaces. On one side, you have an environment driven by fear. On the other, an environment built on trust. And when you can get to that place of trust, that's when the magic happens. That's when real learning starts, genuine trust is built, and you see serious, tangible improvements. So how does this change actually happen? It's probably not going to be from a company-wide email. It starts with one person. One person on one team who has the courage to be vulnerable, to say, you know what? I'm not sure. Let's figure this out. That one simple act can give everyone else permission to be honest too.
And that is the ultimate goal. That's the payoff. When saying, I don't know, is no longer a big deal, the whole team's focus can shift from just performing and looking smart to actually making progress, from pretending to learning. And that's when a team or a company really starts to grow.
So I'll leave you with this final thought, a question to take back with you. In your team, in your workplace, can you say, I don't know without fear? Is it a dangerous phrase, or is it an accepted starting point? The answer to that question really says everything about the culture that you're a part of.